Jim. He's dead.
Hello, and welcome to Improv Autopsy. I'm your host, Stephen Cadwell. In this, the first interview episode of Season 2, I chat with the Socrates of Chicago Comedy, Jimmy Binns. I met Jimmy at the Conservatory, home of Korn Productions, when Kayla and I performed in a season of Improv Gladiators. Jimmy served as one of the judges for a couple of the performances. Conservatory is one of those Chicago improv rites of passage that Kayla and I didn't get to when we lived in the Windy City, so we drove back to play and tick it off our list. I'm glad we did, for lots of reasons, meeting Jimmy being one of them. Jimmy is affable and exudes joy. He's also one of the masterminds behind Flanagan's Wake, a stage production that utilizes a lot of audience interaction and improvisation where the audience participates in an Irish wake. Flanagan's ran for 16 years in Chicago, and since my interview with Jimmy, I saw it in Cleveland, where it's been a tradition for 15 years. Jimmy and I talked about Flanagan's as well as his tenure as artistic director of Noble Fool Theater and all things Chicago comedy. Please enjoy part 1 of Jimmy Binns' Improv Autopsy.
This is great because I've been wanting to hook this kind of thing up at home for a while. I bought I got a mixer, getting good mics, getting different bits of equipment to do actual live DJing with record albums.
Oh, nice. Have you done that before?
No. It's one of the things, it's like, okay, I have a huge record collection and I want to get that skill down, being able to turntable mix an evening or an hour radio broadcast. I did radio comedy for a couple of years, like with a college where I came in and did 50 different kinds of voices. I'm thrilled that it's just audio because I can be anyone, we're just voices in their head.
Yeah.
And saying things. And if we can hold their attention for any amount of time. And I like to think of like when I work with the improv groups, like I'm not judging. I see it as kind of like dropping little ripples of raindrops. Can I affect you a little? Like just little raindrops in the big ocean of everybody.
Yeah.
How many ripples can we make? And because we do, everything we do will have a ripple.
Yeah.
Some may just be small. Some may turn into rolling waves of people the stuff that they've been doing on the internet to get people's attention. The cue thing, that whole ecosystem is for catching someone's attention and taking them down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And an improviser has an audience. That's your audience. You've got a room full of people, and you're reaching into their imagination and saying, let me take you somewhere. And holding the attention of a room full of people and making them laugh, they are way more likely to change coming out of that experience than any other way of moving an audience.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump in. Thank you for joining me on this. I recently met you at Conservatory at the Korn Productions Theater there in Chicago, where you were helping out with the Improv Gladiators.
It's a great thing where they have 6 teams, new up and coming improv teams, competing against one of each other to gain a spot on the main stage for themselves to develop their own show. And these groups come in, and there's 3 very experienced improvisers giving them feedback and helping them to decide how do you want to do your show.
Yeah. And I described it to a couple other people as a Chicago rite of passage. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it feels like it is.
I think that would be absolutely the right kind of claim for this. I see it as my own improv roots of being in the storefront with the BYOB, bring your own beverage, and getting up on stage with a room full of people and laughing. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it comes very easily through improvisation. When you get talented comedians, funny people going at it freewheel, you're going to laugh.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your roots a little bit. When did you first become aware of improv? When did that enter your consciousness?
The short version of the life bio. I'm 6 years old. My dad was an actor. I'm 6 years old. I'm watching him in a play where he is the murderer. And I turn to my mom and I say, Mom, is dad going to hell? And she said, No, honey, you see, you can do things on stage that you can't do in real life, and it's okay with God. And this 6 year old sat there going, Oh, I can do anything I want to up there, and it's okay with God. I can kill somebody. I could say, fuck. I could be the bad guy, or I could be the hero. I could be anything I want to up there, and it's okay. And I spent my whole life doing just that: directing, writing, singing, acting, dancing. I went to NYU, New York University, from 1979 to 1984. Now, look at those years of what New York City was like. And I lived in Hell's Kitchen. I first came to improv through ad lib. I saw it as when you forgot your lines, you made something up, and that's ad libbing.
Sure.
And then found it as, improvisation, as it was taught, was this. Oh, okay. And then when I moved to Chicago, we came here and there was the Improv Institute, which was one of the first groups to take improvisation and make it a full 90-minute evening entertainment. A first act, an intermission, and a second act. And it was 5 performers. And that group, and then we started mingling in there. And we ended up creating a lot of improv with the Irish accents. We were all Irish, and we could all do much higher. And we made Flanagan's Wake, which became one of the longest running improvised shows. It's published now. It's out there. There's people doing it in places like Alaska. And that built the Noble Full Theater Company, which was the first full equity theater complex for the art of comedy. And we had 3 spaces. We had cabaret we had a studio for the improv, and we had main stage to do full scripted original comedic works.
Okay, so I do want to talk more about Noble Fool for sure, but let's go back a little bit further. So you were in New York. When was it after graduation? Shortly after graduation?
Omar Shapley taught me improv at NYU. Then I started working in New York, working backstage, building sets for Sunday in the Park with George. I didn't actually begin improvising until about 1987 when I moved here to Chicago and found we mingled with the Improv Institute. And then we started doing a group quartet that opened for them. We do opening songs, we did comedic songs, and then we would patch in, improvise with them, and do different stuff. And so we just became a network of people doing original work.
And who was the Improv Institute?
Improv Institute was Jack Bronis, Pat Musker, Ross Godstein, Evan Gore, and Tom Hannigan. And all of them have had massive careers and huge influence in the improv world of Chicago. Evan went on to write for Animaniacs. I think he wrote most of their scripts. Jack has become one of the foremost teachers at Second City. I remember one of the groups that came to Gladiators, they were all like, Jack! Jack was like, oh, we love Jack. He taught us. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, Jack and I made an Irish show together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. So here you go. And I did. I sent Jack a note saying, Jack, they all loved you.
My scene partner also had Jack at Second City when she went through Second City.
There we go. You said this, I think, after one of the shows or in our email for the podcast, how diverse but also interconnected the improv community really is.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. There are people all over entertainment industry that hold Chicago Improv as their little badge among all their. Here I am. I'm a Chicago actor. I have improv background. It's like, yeah, Chicago Improv is a huge brand.
Yeah. And the podcast for me is kind of like, I described it the other day as my murder board. So it just started with people that I knew, and it's just expanded because those people are connected to other people, and it's just, the cobweb just continues to grow, and it's amazing when you start pulling a thread where it leads.
Well, there's the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon scenario, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the 2 degree club. I'm like 2 degrees from a whole lot of people. I know a guy who knows him. I know a guy who knows him. Yeah, I know a guy. Yeah, we work together, or I did that together. At one point, I was one of 12. There were 12 full-time artistic directors in the city of Chicago at one time. These are 12 individuals who are holding a real job as artistic director. And that's a small club. It's like we all would get together and go, okay, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? How's Steppenwolf? Okay, yeah. Goodman. Okay, yeah. When the Goodman opened, I laughed because Steve Scott called me and said, can we have auditions over at your space? I said, you have an entire city block. How'd you run out of room? He goes, we just overbooked. So it happens everywhere. It was like, they're all like, oh, yeah. I always say, you owe me a cup of sugar. That was our joke. Like, hey, neighbor, can I borrow a cup of sugar? You got space?
So the quartet that you formed that was opening then for Improv Institute,
That was Relative Obscurity.
that was the group name?
Mm-hmm. Relative Obscurity. I would say that we got to the B class level of club entertainment groups. It got created solely for the purposes of giving one of our friends an income. He had gotten AIDS in the early AIDS wave, and we needed to get him up. And he was one of the funniest people we ever knew. And he wrote lyrics, and we had a musician, a keyboardist, and we had soprano, alto, tenor, bass. We were described as Manhattan Transfer meets the Marx Brothers. We did songs like The Jaded, how jaded people get, and weird things like Pajama Boy. That was a huge hit with a lot of people. They were like, oh, we love it. They're like, okay, great. We sang the national anthem at the Cubs, the Sox,
Wow.
the Bulls. We sat on the bench for Jordan. And then you go out center court and we sang the national anthem and everyone cheers. And you're like, fuck, how did I get here?
And were you improvising songs?
No, these were all we had. I don't know. The canon had something like 20 or 30 songs, all comedic, and we knew our audience. We knew how to make them laugh. We had an encore song that was basically we're threatening to sing everything that's ever been written. You'll never get out of here. We're gonna keep singing till our lungs bleed. And it was a great ride. And after he passed, we actually did bring another friend of ours in to the group because it was like, do we keep the body of work going? And he came in gallantly. Darren Stevens, he's a voiceover performer that I'm sure you have seen in a commercial. He just has that voice that gives you that. He is an extraordinary voiceover performer. And yeah, we kept it going for about like 2-3 years. And at that time, we built the Noble Fool. That was the undercurrent growing from all of those small pieces. Flanagan's Wake becomes a huge success. We're selling that out 52 weeks a year in bigger and bigger spaces. So that leveraged us. And then we saw that they were developing the corner of State and Randolph downtown. And as part of the planning of that city block, the mayor wanted to put a small theater company into that complex. And we went in and said, we have a hit show with tourists. We are dedicated to the art of comedy. Let us be the group that goes in there. And they said, yeah. And that became the Noble Fool. And it was behind the cuckoo clock, the Bavarian cuckoo clock at the corner of State and Randolph. And at the peak, I had 80 artists under contract. We franchised out to St. Charles. So I had 6 spaces with 8 curtain times on a Saturday.
And you were AD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get too much further that way, who was your original friend? Can we say his name or?
Kurt McClellan.
So he was in the original
Relative Obscurity.
Yeah.
Correct. And Kurt goes back to the early roots of my family theater. We go way back to childhood days. So it's that kind of friendship core development that's why it was Relative Obscurity. My sister was in the act, so it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
We actually have I'm worried about our quilt panel. He's in the quilt. It's Guinness Book of Records calls it the world's largest community art project. And I'm worried that Trump is going to rip them up, or just toss them out. They're in the Smithsonian. They're stored in the Smithsonian. You can look up the digital panels. You can see my friend's panel of the quilt.
I forget what show we were doing. It may have been Angels in America, but when I was at Western Michigan University and we had some of the quilt come and visit the campus while we were doing the production. But yeah, I mean, that would be terrible if that were to happen. I think it's far enough off his radar that but who knows the road we're on now. But that's amazing that the panel's there.
I'm sure it's got to be a big space.
Yeah.
They're hung in, I think, 12 by 10 panels.
Yeah.
In like a dry cleaners. So I would think that takes up a lot of room.
Yeah.
And I could just see him going, let's put a gold frame gilded display of my father here.
Yeah. It would be of himself. He doesn't care enough about.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. A dollar bill. A Bitcoin. Let's make a tribute to Bitcoin.
So you said Flanagan's Wake came out of that pairing.
Yeah, that's that blending going on there. There's the Improv Institute, and we're doing Flanagan's Wake late night on Saturdays, and then Relative Obscurity is doing a Sunday show. We had Sundays from Relative Obscurity. I would book, it was a variety show. We would book other musicians to come in, comedians, and I used to get the guys off the subway, the street musicians. I'd go up to him and go, if you show up on a Saturday night, I'll give you $20 to do 5 minutes. And he would, like, the guy would play a zither with spoons. And I'm like, I'll give you an audience for 5, here you go. I think what you're doing is really cool. And they were sometimes a little crazy. Yeah. This is street musicians. But yeah, some would show up, some wouldn't show up, and we could just do different things. We also had Jeff Bins-Calvi, my brother-in-law, who works in commercial special effects. He had a character called Dr. Boom, and he would just come out and detonate objects. At one time he did a box for Women's Week. He did a box of tampons, right? And he's got black powder in it, and it goes boom. And nothing exploded. It absorbed the box didn't break. Nothing broke. Not like the watermelon that went all the way. This just went poof. It was a very funny bit.
Like Gallagher, but with black powder instead of a hammer.
Correct. Absolutely. That was exactly what it was. He'd come out with something and blow it up.
Where were you performing with the quartet and with Improv Institute?
The Improv Institute was located on Western Belmont, a little east of Western. It's later turned into the bar, the Angry Brain. Then we moved to the Royal George Theater, which is across the street from Steppenwolf. And that's where we were housed for about 4 or 5 years with Flanagan's Wake there. And then we moved to the State in Randolph. And then we pick up St. Charles. We had a little storefront on Randolph before the building, the Block 36 was a huge construction campaign. And we had to go temporary in a hit or miss store half block away. So we were like by the Walgreens and doing Flanagan's Wake in a storefront. There's an elevator floor, I think, still in one of the parking garages where the button says Noble Fool.
Oh.
We have a floor. We have a parking garage floor.
Hey, that's something, right?
That's my mark on life.
Tell me a little bit about the development of Flanagan's Wake. And first of all, I guess for those that are listening that are curious, if you Google it, you will be able to find it. It's Dramatic Publishing. Is that what it's called? Where it's at?
Correct.
And you can buy a digital copy, you can buy a physical copy, and there's lots of things about this that I'm curious about and fascinated about. But I guess we'll just start with what was the development of that like? How did that come about?
It came about because shortly around that time, New York was doing Tony and Tina's wedding, and someone mentioned you guys should do the Irish version of Tony and Tina's wedding. And its reply was, well, it wouldn't be a wedding, it would be a wake. And that was the initial birth of the idea. Jack Bronis then sat down and wrote out archetype characters that he thought should be in the wake. There should be the priest, there should be his fiancée, his mother, the mayor, who's also the bartender, Flanagan's best friend and drinking mate. And we wrote a will. We figured the first act would end with a will. And we wrote a will which had a riddle in it. And the riddle gets solved at the end of the second act. That was the framework we had around the table. And then everyone went out and just improvised who they were. And bits became too good to not repeat. There were just things we discovered at being these characters and involving the audience. Every member of the audience is there to grieve the loss of Flanagan. So it begins the moment you walk in the door. You're greeted by a happy, sad, smiling face saying, "Oh, are you feeling all right? Come on in. All right. Have a beer. Let's have a drink. By the time you started the show, you had already rallied friends who thought you were funny by little bits you did with them one-on-one. And then when everyone is sitting in the room and the show proper starts, we could make that group of people laugh all night long. The original cast on a late Saturday night could do a 3-hour show. And we'd say, okay, we got to cut it back. We got to cut it down. We got to trim this. And there was a moment in time, it was somewhere around like year 3, that we all sat down and locked it and said, this is the show. And formed a group, seat of our pants, to manage that show. And all of the original cast members were the directors of the satellite productions of the road shows. And that way we maintained the core philosophy, which was elevate the audience. Don't degrade them. Make them look good. It's about them.
Yeah.
Give them the punchline. that nothing's more fun than when you're talking and you're building all this stuff up and then you hand it over to an audience member and you have the confidence that whatever comes out of their mouth is going to be comedy gold.
Yeah.
And they get to deliver the punchline. They get to make the whole room howl with laughter. We used to count them in the first 5 minutes of the show. There were 23 huge belly laughs. That's a lot of laughs.
Yeah. So the year 3, when you said you sat down and you're like, this is the show, is that when the script was written? Or
Correct.
okay.
Because we were also bringing in people to take over.
Gotcha.
I did 5 years straight. And then I moved into management. So their actors then took over playing me, and actors who took over for other people. So we had to have scripts and things for them to do. And when we went to publish, we also, in the back of the script, there is each character has written a note, a little inner dialogue of here's how you play this role. Here's what to look for when you're looking for your foils, patterns. After doing this for so many, for 400, 800, whatever it is, you go, here's what will work.
Yeah.
So.
And that's one of the things that is really fascinating to me about the written version of it. Before you did Flanagan's Wake, what was the improv that you were doing around town? Were you doing stuff other places as well, or were you?
I was brought in guest performer over at Free Associates. Was an improv group that did themed improvisation. This is where one of the ones was Cast on a Hot Tin Roof, which was a totally improvised Tennessee Williams play. 5 actors. Play begins with the 5 actors in their underwear, like a southern generic looking set. And from the audience suggestions, we created a Tennessee Williams play. You knew at some point you were going to do the painful inner monologue, and the dream was going to be crushed, and we just knew how it was another really well put together form by Mark Gagne, and that was great to play. I used to do Orson Welles in their Hollywood Squares. I just sit there with a cigar and a glass of wine and going, fuck you. And they had Pick a Deck, which was a detective series type of thing, murder mystery. I did one of those. They did ER, like a medical drama spoof. Wander in as a doctor with a clipboard and tell him it's not looking good. Then wander out. Then we did the Baritones. That was one of the other longest running improv shows in Chicago history. It had a 7-year run, and that was a spoof on The Sopranos, where it was all the Goomba guys and they would improvise an episode. It was hysterical.
And where was that?
That was one of the shows that the Improv Institute morphed into Zeitgeist Theater, which morphed into Noble Fool Theater.
Okay.
That's the kitchen table board of actors reincorporating as theaters, becoming different entities along the way. And the products that were built out of there were Relative Obscurity, Flanagan's Wake, the Baritones, the original musical Vikings, a musical in 2 acts. Oh, we did the one-man Star Wars trilogy. This guy came in with his show, one man, and he did all 3 of the first Star Wars movies. And it was one of the most incredible things to witness. It was so good that Lucas picked him up and made him part of the whole empire, because this guy, rather than going after him for copyrights, said, come work with us. do our events, we'll book you forever doing this.
Yeah. And you'd said that Noble Fool was a comedy theater and you had a space dedicated to improv. And it also seems to me when you're talking about these improv shows that you were bringing a theatricality to improv that you don't necessarily find at the tentpole improv institutions that people hear about in Chicago. Flanagan's Wake. And one of the things, like I said, that I find fascinating about Flanagan's Wake, and I was curious about how you put it together, is because when you're reading it, you took a lot of care, you all did, when you were putting it ink to paper to say this is the show, to recognize that whoever's getting a hold of it might not be a cast of very experienced improvisers. And there are lots of really great tips and hints and tricks in there for this is how you deal with the audience. This is how you interact with an audience. And these are some options that you have for these moments. And I can see even sort of a cast that's more novice at improv being able to be successful in that production because you put so much in there to help whoever gets it along in that regard.
It was important to us. And we spoke in that language as improvisers. There were mottos, themes. Yes, and today's the day. Play to the top of your intelligence. Make your partner shine. That's the kind of fabric I find that makes living more successful.
Yeah.
I can never wrap my mind around the benefits of the negative path, of choosing the negative path. Let me yell at you. Let me complain about you. Let me argue with you. The other path of joy, laughter, camaraderie. Can I lend a hand? I got your back. Let's do it together. Isn't this fun? I don't understand why people choose the other way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to preach. I don't want to tell someone, hey, buddy, if you stood upright, your back wouldn't hurt, right? You don't want to be telling people how to change themselves. You can only show yourself as yourself and hope they see a reflection and go, oh, there you go. Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe that's how I should pick up the furniture. But, after a while, you learn, no, don't eat donuts before you pick up furniture. Wear a back belt. Think it through before you go do it. Now, think it through. That's a motto of mine that my father gave me when I was a young man. Think it through. Whatever you're doing, think it through. And if you have a vivid imagination, there's a long through line. You can constantly be thinking something through. There is no end. This is that definition of infinity.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking it through. So if you're always thinking about things and thinking about what you're doing and looking at your surroundings and being aware, being mindful, being alert, social distancing, be kind, things work out. And that's how we built a comedy empire. That's how I ended up in 5-second bits in the movie A Christmas Story as the Cowardly Lion. I directed the opening gathering for the poetry slam at Navy Pier, where my friend Mark Smith, who created the poetry slam, asked me to direct this opening sequence with all of these major poets and telling me, look at their egos. These are, and I blocking them to stand in front of each other or move around. It's a huge stage, telling them when to cross and say, please, this is the picture. It will be amazing. And you just finding yourself in these places and realizing, again, that center field. How did I get here? I'm still trying to find that answer. It's maybe my formula has just been saying yes and to every opportunity that ever came up.
Yeah.
The other gift from my father is how to see things. There's looking at things and there is seeing things. And my father and I both had the ability to see the greater good in people and see what it was that was blocking that greater good from coming out. That's what directing an actor is. You're looking at someone and you're saying, okay, here's what's blocking you from finding the moment that we need to find the character, the reality, the laugh, the point of here we are. We have their attention. We're using all the tools of visual, audio, emotional to take you to a prescribed moment where we know you're going to either laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to cheer, you're going to stand up. That feeling of a live event, I have never, ever been able to find that feeling in anything else. Pot, drinking, what, I lived New York 79 to 84. Okay, I tried them all. It is one of the most magical things on this earth. And it's also theater, performance, live, getting people together for this kind of purpose is the only one that doesn't preach to you. It's at sports. We get together for arenas and sports and competition, or it's our religious practice, dogma, that we go ritual to. And then there's theater, which to me is its own religion of humanity. Everyone who's different, everyone who's a freak, everyone who can't fit into society, theater performance holds a place for you. Holding the spotlight, being in all black in the dark, waiting to push a chair, sitting silently for 14 minutes, waiting to push a chair and have no one know you pushed it. These are weird little experiences that totally open up your consciousness in ways that working a job, working in a kitchen, running tasks, having fights with friends, getting into bitter little nibnabs on our data phones of working together side by side with somebody building giant flats with canvases and stretching them and painting them and spending the whole day pulling staples out of something to create something that later will make a whole room of people go, yeah. You're like, okay, great. Confetti cannon, check. Okay. And when you have that knowledge, when you know it's manipulation, you can manipulate people. I was in a bar with a guy and I made a bet with him. I was telling him, if you talk in the right tone and the right attitude, people will do whatever you tell them to do. He says, no, they won't. I said, okay, I'll bet you $1 I can make the guy at the other end of the bar stand up. He goes, okay. And I look up bright and go, hey, fella, do me a favor. Stand up. He stands up. Thank you. He sits down. I take his $1. Tone, attitude, how you look. People respond to it. I do apologize. I do know I carry the guilt. I do feel I was aware when I was 16 that I was the beneficiary of being a white male, that I was accepted as being the guy in charge. At 16, people thought I was the owner of the building or the manager of I spoke with authority. I walked with authority. I made you feel like I was in control of what was going on because I could, because I knew how to. And there are other people, politicians, everybody else, that's what's the mastery of. Can I keep holding your attention as long as possible? In Flanagan's Wake, one of my favorite things is I could pause as long as I wanted and keep them waiting. Timing. Comedy.
Well, what is it that drew you then to comedy? Because you have a rich theater background, and I'm sure there's still a place for drama and tragedy and all the rest. But what was it about comedy that really resonated with you?
Chuck Jones, Warner Brothers Cartoons. He was a masterful comedian director. Laurel and Hardy. I could do Oliver Hardy. I did Oliver. We joined the Sons of the Desert fan club. We were Ennio Port was our chapter, and they do a Fez hat convention. And we went to Detroit, and I was in my best Babe Hardy attire and attitude. I met his wife, his widow, and after about 5 minutes, she leaned in close to me and said, "Excuse me, I have to leave because you are reminding me too much of him." Then a friend of ours, a comedic actor, we were always doing comedy within my boy tribe, my middle school, high school cousin, friend, brother, Kurt. We were constantly always on little creative binges of making tapes, radio parodies of commercials, just noises, fun thing to ask women, make your best machine gun noise versus what guys do to make their different machine gun sounds with their mouth, whatever. Oh, his mother, this actor, his mother died, and he was sad. And the Cleveland Public Library had every single Laurel and Hardy film on 16 millimeter. And after the shows, we would sit in an empty auditorium, 4 of us, and watch Laurel and Hardy movies on a big screen. So with Chuck Jones, Laurel and Hardy, to me, those two there defined a lot of what are the rules of how to make something funny, how to keep working at it. It's a standard. I guess I look at art very much like the Greeks do or did. There is a system. There are certain measures. You can say that's perfectly balanced. That's a perfect image. And these are the proportions. And my comedy philosophy after all these years is the rule of 3. It comes in 3s. And it's not black and white, there's gray. The rule of 3 applies, and with yes and, if you take the rule of 3 and yes and then you take this little recipe I have of balance, rhythm, and harmony, mix them together in equal amounts, you have the perfect moment.
And would you say that you've been able to either facilitate or be part of those, like the perfect moments in your mind? Can you count them? Could you enumerate them? Or are there, you've encountered it enough that it's beyond counting those perfect moments at this point?
I have one every day. You and I are having a perfect moment. I don't know. I was gifted with, if we believe in DNA, I was gifted with the creative gene. I was gifted with the gene that is not afraid to stand in front of a crowd of people and speak. Some 90% of people list that as their top fear of having to stand in front of people and speak. I don't have that gene. I have the opposite of that gene. I also have a great respect for perspective. I cannot see the world the way you see the world. And you can't see the world the way I see the world. So those are the two most valuable things that exist. Your perspective is valuable. And if you share it with me, it's a treasure. If we respect those things, the individual perspective, each and every one of us is so special and so unique. And that uniqueness is so worth sharing. Then I was gifted with the artistic creative thing where I can sing, I can paint, I can dance, I can draw, I can memorize really well, I can build sets, I can direct, I can choreograph, I can work on a Home Depot commercial where my entire job for the whole 12 hours was to sit there and replace the battery when the battery on the drill went dead. Switch, 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 done. Okay. That was my whole job for that day. I learned how to do everything in the industry and live the life in between. There's always ways to make cash, and cash is not what is valuable to me. What's valuable to me are the treasures, are the millions of moments I've had shared with people. When I wait in line at the grocery store, I will have a genuine, fun, maybe touching, maybe moving moment with whomever wishes to engage with me. That's the small ripples I think that need to happen, is to have positive interactions with people and hope they ripple out big.
Yeah.
I've been feeling people being more receptive. Pre-pandemic, I felt I was facing kind of like people looking at me like I was the crazy guy. Why are you so happy? Who's so happy? Why are you so happy? And a strange, weird resentment there. And I saw that the posting I was doing on Facebook was kind of like saying, yeah, I guess if you were in a bad mood and you saw me showing how happy I was or how nice my life was, that's a slap in the face. So I left social media for other reasons. The pumping of the ego was something that was so tangible to me. It was like, oh my God, this is so pumping my ego, and wanting to take more of the whatever the Buddhist route is of stripping away the ego. It's not about me, it's about you. It's about the people listening to this, not me talking about it. And that's where I find is a very great place to live. I'm constantly creating, making up stuff. If I have an audience of one or an audience of 2,000 or an audience of 40,000, bring it on.
So you built sets. You obviously, I'm judging by the story you told about the move pushing the chair on that you've been on crew. You've been in front of or on stage, and you've also been director and artistic director. Do you get Is it the same fulfillment for each of those? Is it the same amount but different types of fulfillment, or does one of those resonate with you more than the others?
I don't think any of them resonate more than the other. They are different experiences, and each one has its own. Like, I've had bad directing experiences and I've had good directing experiences. I've had bad acting experiences and transcendent acting experiences. So each of the disciplines can have their up and down. Okay. I can tell you that when I played the role Rothko in the play Red by John Logan, that it profoundly affected me personally as a human being. It's the most volume of words I've ever memorized. It's a marathon of dialogue and monologue and an actual moment to unleash pure rage, to get up in the face of somebody and really release rage. And that was a cathartic and kind of a little frightening because the character is a real man, Mark Rothko, painter, who 6 months after the time period of this play commits suicide. because he reached a point in his life where he truly believed that no one saw the world the way he did. And the way he saw it was right. And that twisted him to such a degree that he was like, there's nobody left who gets me. So why should I be here? And he took the exit. And there is a weirdness to having played so many characters. I have been in front of an audience for more than 4,287 times in my life, playing a role or making them laugh or whatever. Each and every one of them different. All characters are like little chips. You take your ego, it's like your id. You can replace your id. Put my Irish id in, take the Irish id out, okay? And become those characters and let words dictate what you're thinking. In design and directing, you're more of God. It's your universe. So you are taking care of this massive picture in your head. You have the full thing. You have thought it through. Being on crew is fun because your pressures are different. There's things you get to take off the worry list that you put on for when you're on stage in the spotlight versus off stage. You're still an actor in it. So you see yourself as a piece of the whole. And I've always loved the whole of theater. I look at it as the oldest profession, not prostitution. It was the guy around the campfire who could tell a good story in the shadows of the fire flames. And they said, no, you don't have to go do this. Tell that story again. Or sing that song, the one who made rhythm, the one who made people laugh, the one who could describe the event in such detail you cried with them. These were the oldest professions. These were the ways then why society started to weave, because we told the narrative. We said the words. We got together to listen to what the story is.
Let's go back to a little bit to what you were saying about, you said an actor friend, their mother passed away, and you were, after the show, you would watch the Laurel and Hardy.
Correct.
That was to cheer him up?
Yep.
Or cheer them up?
That was just to make him laugh.
And I presume it worked.
It did. It did make him laugh. And we sat there till 3 a.m. laughing and helping him get through that grief.
Was that where your optimism was born, or was it there already and this is just another outcropping of it?
My optimism is another genetic trait. When I look back on my life and write about my life at different stages, I've always referred to them as aha moments. Aha. The one with my dad being the murderer. When my parents got divorced and my sister was sad, my mother was sad, and my father was sad, I made a conscious choice to make them laugh, to bring them out of sadness. So that's at 8. When I was in high school, I was doing the PA announcements. All right, today's lunch special will be fish and the recess detention center, the data that went out to the speakers. And I decided to do it one time as if I was underwater. And they said I got fired for being too creative. By the time I got to college, I had 100 theatrical production credits to my resume. I was working and getting jobs all the time for different reasons, for wherever it was, and never stressed about making one the focus over the other. It was just, oh, here's the opportunity, here's the challenge, here's the time. One day I decided to go paint and got a canvas and got oils and made paintings. There's a series of 3 paintings that are done on the window shades of my New York apartment. I just pulled them down, cut them, and taped them to the wall and painted paintings. So there's a few of those. Like one is missing. I know where most of them are, but one is somewhere is just out there in the ether. It was given to a friend. I think the friend's wife got it in a divorce. I have no idea where she is out there in the world or whether this piece of mine still sits there. The exchanges of correspondence and letters and scripts and programs. I have a friend who periodically from the Cleveland area will send me photographs of old stage productions and say, do you know who these actors are? And I'm like, yeah, that's Bruce Hollow and that's Marianne Lucas and knowing these people and having friendships for 50 years. It's a 57-year career of doing theater. And I'm still doing it. Quietly. I'm waiting. I'm not pushing. I'm not hungry for something. I know it's not my turn to lead. I'm certainly not going to try to build a new theater company and say, yes, let the old white guy do it again. I'm here for whoever needs me. I play the old white guy in a lot of black rap videos. I play the undercover cop that beats him up in something. There's one where we were doing a eyes wide shut kind of thing where he was surrounded by old white guys in white masks, and it turns into some bacchanalian lap dance billionaire Jeffrey Epstein-esque orgy thing. And that was 2 days of filming. I've played understudies for, I followed an equity actor for a long time, friend of mine, Jack Hickey. I was his go-to understudy. He'd say, Jimmy, I'm doing this. And that's a great role. He goes, do you want to back me up? Sure, I'll back you up. Then he goes, I'll give you one night. And I'm like, great, cool. So I get to play it one night, watch my friend do it. I get to play it one night. There is always something for me to go digging into. I have a massive record collection. I want to start doing comedy vocal bits with old cuts from old things that have always made me laugh. Things like the Harmonicats and the Banjokers, a 4-woman banjo group. The cover alone, some of these I buy them for the cover. This one is actually autographed. Irene, Laverne, Doris. It made me laugh just to look at the beautiful 1950s artwork of these women and their banjos.
So explain to me what you said you want to do with those, because you were also talking about doing actual DJing, but this is not that, right?
Yeah, those are the things currently right now in my personal situation. I'm on Social Security retirement. I don't have to work. My home and all of my things, I can live well within my means. So there is no forced of taking action. I don't have to work. So I just play around with ones to see which ones will catch on. Or I sometimes describe myself as the genie in a bottle mode, waiting for someone else to come by for the discovery of let's collaborate. Oh, you have this? Let's do this with it. So I'm not the one constantly driving the things.
Yeah.
I actually came up with a different name. My set design tech work resume is Kurt Brandt. And my directing and acting is Jimmy Binns, because I would direct and design my own sets. And I just was tired of seeing my name so many times in the program
Yeah.
that it's like I erase the ego again, erase those things or share. I got a review once where they praised my set design, but said director Jimmy Binns didn't do a good job with it. That really made me laugh. Like, oh, great.
You didn't know what to do with your own set.
I didn't know what to do with my own set.
That's it for part 1 of Jimmy Binns' Improv Autopsy. Check out some links in the show notes for more information about things discussed in this episode. If you have any questions or want to contact Jimmy, reach out and we'll get you connected. You can find bonus content on the Improv Autopsy Patreon, even at the free level, so check that out as well. Thanks for listening to Improv Autopsy.